Wanders the city. I am here with my special friend, well, she's special, but my friend Jen. We are here
Hello.
in Lincoln Square this evening. We're going to wander some of the stops of the Brown Line. The Brown Line is one of the CTA lines that takes us basically from the city center. It'll do a loop around the city center, and then it'll come north and northwest at a much more northern disposition than the Blue Line is. The Blue Line is going to take you straight out the highway. We're going to be probably 3 miles north of that, paralleling the Blue Line. We were here in Lincoln Square about a month ago at MyFest.
Yeah,
for MyFest, we were here. But I just think that this is a very beautiful mural that they've got on the side of the building here. Germanic town.
This was an old Germanic neighborhood settled by German farmers, German and English farmers. And the line that we're going to explore was built all the way out to Kimball in 1907.
Nice.
The neighborhoods were formerly served by streetcars, but they were farming communities. There were a lot of old suburb communities from the 1800s. So they got built up even further and more developed after, of course, the old Ravenswood line went in.
Nice. Thanks, Nance. We're going to, so while we're in this neighborhood, we're going to stop by, there's an old element of the Berlin Wall that's here. We're going to stop by that. And we're going to travel from here on up to the Kimball exit. So there's several exits between here, or several stations between here and Kimball, which is the terminal end of the Brown Line.
We will have Western, Rockwell, Francisco, Kedzie, and then Kimball.
Nice. Hopefully you're hearing Jen clearly. Jen is an old friend of mine, and it's mostly that I say that because of her age. We really haven't been friends that long.
Tell them the truth.
All right. We've been friends for a while, and I might be a little bit older than her.
Paul was a great help to me in my running years as an ultramarathoner. He would just show up and assist me no matter where in the country I was running.
This is so cool. Look at the pigeon inside the station. So I don't know if you can see up there, but that pigeon is actually inside the station here at Western. So here you can see that the transportations and the modes of transportation kind of are well integrated. So we're coming past, there's a bus station here, which this bus is just a way so that the people from the Brown Line can get onto the bus system or onto the train system. What are you looking for?
I'm looking for the chunk of the old Berlin Wall. Oh, there it is right there.
Hi. So I'm going to put you on the wall that this is a portion of the Berlin Wall. And again, we're in a very heavily Germanic neighborhood in this space. Jen let me know something special about the two sides of this wall. So we're seeing there's graffiti here. I'm going to take you to the other side of the wall. And Jen, what have we already seen about the wall so far?
So the one side has graffiti on it. That is the side of the Berlin Wall that was in West Germany. West Germans were allowed to express their art, express themselves. And now you're seeing the East German side of the Berlin Wall, where of course people were not allowed to express themselves. It was heavily guarded, etc.
Got the Brandenburg Gate here. Do you know about the Brandenburg Gate and Napoleon's elements of this?
I don't.
So this is the Brandenburg Gate, which is in Germany, right? Berlin, Germany. When Napoleon came through, he actually stole this element, brought it back to France as a trophy. And there's a couple of things that are interesting here. During the period of the separation of East and West Germany, this particular gate sat in the boundary land, so nobody actually could come to this gate. You could approach it close from the East Berlin, or you could approach it closely from West Berlin, but you couldn't walk up to the wall. It's that in no man's land. The other thing that's interesting about this is that the current orientation of the wall, so the chariots are riding to one side of the city right now. However, before Napoleon stole this, it actually went to the other side of the wall. So, and you can fact check me on that, and I may be right or may be wrong, but I always thought that was interesting that it wasn't always there. It sat in the no man's land of East and West Germany, you know, in no man's land between the two sides of Berlin.
How are we feeling about Louis Sullivan?
I like
That's
Louis Sullivan.
2 blocks.
Yep.
Okay.
So we're next going to hit a famous element of, there are several important architects that grew out of the Chicago scene. We've seen some of the Probst, the post office. Probst, and there was 4 people. Graham Probst, maybe Young, although I might be confusing that with
You're just making names up right now. Also Stills and Nash.
Yeah. And Sullivan was another prominent architect.
Adler and Sullivan together did a number of buildings here, including the Auditorium Theater, really famous for the acoustics. Of course, at that time, you didn't have the amplification, so you needed to be able to build something where sound just moved. So they did a wonderful job of that.
And that's Roosevelt, right? Right, Roosevelt University?
Yes, currently Roosevelt University. Right now, probably the most famous is the old Carson Peary Scott building. I want to say Madison and State. Very famous, and unfortunately over the past few years, it always feels like around an anniversary, one of his buildings burns down. So we just keep losing them and losing them. He is a big deal though.
And that's a shame. Almost, I can't think of anything that he would have that wouldn't be a national landmark. And just one moment, I want to go sideways on the sidewalk here. Remember, I've always talked about the idea that we have all of the murals that are here in the city, and there are several on this. Do you happen to know what this style is, Jen?
No.
I know it is a named style. I just don't know what the style is.
One of the funny things about Adler and Sullivan is they had a young man apprenticing for them, and they found out he was moonlighting down by Hyde Park. He had built some houses where you really have to look for, like this garage and these specific types of brick and whatever. But they tossed that Frank Lloyd Wright out on his butt for moonlighting.
So Frank Lloyd Wright lost his first job.
Yes, as an apprentice to Adler and Sullivan. So one of the things that makes me love Louis Sullivan is that during the World's Fair, Daniel Burnham, who is usually just so progressive and all this, said he wanted to do a neoclassical style. And Louis Sullivan did not understand why. We are at the breaking edge. We're at the forefront of architecture in the whole world. And Daniel Burnham wanted to go backwards. And Louis Sullivan would not play that game. So he does have an interesting building for the World's Fair. This was his last building. Unfortunately, after everything with the World's Fair, he was an alcoholic. He wasn't getting work. He became known for doing his jewel box banks all over the Midwest. Small towns across the entire country have these beautiful, beautiful banks, but this was his very, very last work, and it was 1922. It is an old music shop that he was commissioned for.
Nice. go through here, and we'll fact check our friend Jen real quick.
He, of course, is well known for the phrase "form follows function," which, you know, the building, the purpose of it comes first, but his attention to detail is incredible.
Folks, I'm going to intentionally go mute for just one moment.
Tell me when I can shut up.
Nope, never.
Oh, this is beautiful.
And if you were with us a couple of weeks ago, you would have we would have been here at MyFest. And historically, MyFest has been held up by the train station where we were at earlier. We saw the Berlin Wall in the western train station of the CTA Brown Line. However, recently they moved it down to a little open area south here on Lincoln Avenue.
They claim this is temporary.
So
there is an apartment
they'll be back
building
up to the station soon.
There is an apartment building going on over at Leland and Western, and this has also got a lot of good attention because it's more of a, we're seeing so many aldermen express aldermanic privilege of turning down new construction. Of course, we're in a housing crisis. So this building getting built in a vibrant neighborhood close to transit has a lot of people excited.
Very nice. Very nice. All right, where are we headed to next, Jen?
Oh, let's...
But while we're here, I'm going to say that I'm a big fan of the diner world, and the neon on this bar and grill, the Daily Bar and Grill. I'm a big fan of that, just that style, and it looks like a diner. This is a place you go in, sit on a stool, and you're going to get hash or slop type food. Want to walk down Wilson until we get back to
I'm thinking
Western?
So, but we have Eastwood. That would be...
one up, one north.
We have
we can go back
something
north a little
cool on Eastwood.
Was this an old movie house with the sign up on top?
Yes, and it still is.
We look up here, you've got the old school signage up there, the Davis.
So we're going to actually go around the corner here for one quick second before heading on our way to see one of the old pumping stations. We have 12 in the city, and they are beautiful.
Nice. So a pumping station, typically those are related to the fire department in that it's an ability, well, both water and fire, a way for us to actually generate pressure so that we can create water pressure in homes and fight fires. Oh, I love the, you know what? I don't think I've ever seen the outside of this building. Couple of things going on here. You've got ComEd's transformer station right here.
Paul and I talk about doing a wander of just transformer stations.
You've got
Here's the L.
the L going behind us. So there's the brown line. And the Thomas Jefferson pumping station.
The city architect, Robinson, 1926, he started as a city architect, and he had this built. And he had a lot of the city infrastructure.
Nice. Something this morning we were on the lake and we talked about the water intake cribs and the idea that these are rather secure facilities, right? The idea that it is both drinking water as well as important water for the fire departments in this space, that they're heavily guarded or protected is maybe the better way of saying that.
I enjoy hearing the stories of the old intake cribs back when they had a crib keeper. So they had someone that would live out there, except even in the worst years.
So similar
the
to
worst
lighthouses,
winters.
right? So you've got the lighthouse folks that are making sure the lights stay lit, and the
Sure.
crib keepers making sure that the water keeps running.
In less pleasant experiences, cyclist. In less pleasant experiences, the old stories, any of the old Chicagoans listening in will recall the summers when it heated up and we had the alewives. So they introduced a salmon to combat the alewives, but anyone that wasn't around back then, we had a massive fish die-off every year when it warmed up, and they just covered the beaches. Dead small fish covered everything, and my God, the beaches stunk, and there were dead fish everywhere. But some years they would swear the alewives went all the way a mile out to the cribs, and the crib keepers would have to unstick them
Out of the water.
everything.
Nice.
Yeah.
It reminds me, in Boston, there is actually a town in the north of Boston, their Red Line, and the top stop is Alewife, which is, again, the same thing.
We still periodically get a small die-off, but nothing, and I'm Gen X.
Let me, real quickly, I'll just show you that there's these single-family homes here, somewhat unique, but you can tell there's an influence one to the next, that there's a commonality in these homes as we come down the street. We're now coming up to Western Avenue.
The longest street in Chicago.
Yes.
Paul and I walked this.
We did.
A month or two ago. We have a little bit more to film.
One of us made the whole thing, but yes.
It was me.
You can see again ahead of us how common it is to have tree-lined streets here in the city. They look great in the summer. In the winter, they're just stumps with sticks.
Nice little hanging flowers and whatnot. Our little local neighborhood associations, they do a lot behind the scenes for neighborhood beautification, fixing things, supporting some of the small independent local businesses. So,
and are they funded by grants or donations from local areas? Because these aren't free to do all this work.
Of course not, no. I wish I had a better answer on that.
Again, just
I love
a beautiful, quiet neighborhood, right? The porches. So this is one of those places where somebody's going to be sitting on a porch on either side of the street, and you actually have conversations across the street in this neighborhood.
With your Cubs flag with a W, we're not seeing as many W's as we would like right now. Wishful thinking.
Definitely seeing a lot of different building materials. So, right, we've got bricks, the small brick, stick and wood frame, and then you've got brownstone over here, or the larger masonry.
I don't want to draw too much attention, but those are a style that I guess we have some of in Chicago, but it's Dutch Colonial Revival. Or as people call it, old farmhouse.
Yeah, the old barn.
Yeah, but it's Dutch Colonial Revival, and it's always kind of fun to come across one.
Beautiful garden. So this would be privately maintained.
And, if we may point this out, this
bubbles?
is milkweed. So really important plant to keep our monarch.
So what's our butterfly population. Another example of the Dutch Colonial. When do we leave Lincoln Square, and when do we come into the next neighborhood?
The river divides so many of our neighborhoods. and definitely the case here. So, you know, we have neighborhoods within neighborhoods, and we have 77 community areas in Chicago. So technically, our community area we're in right now is Lincoln Square, but we are going to be in the Ravenswood neighborhood, kind of if you imagine Lakeview with Boys Town and Wrigleyville.
Gotcha.
Just subset neighborhoods. So today we'll be doing the Lincoln Square community area that of course has the Lincoln Square neighborhood with the Ravenswood. Ravenswood being an old kind of commuter suburb back in the day. It was first established in 1868, so nice old neighborhood. And then we'll be crossing the river, going into Albany Square. Albany Park. I live in the neighborhood and I can't remember its name.
Nobody.
So we're in Albany Park, but we're going to be in the Ravenswood Manor neighborhood, which is really a nice neighborhood. Absolutely worth coming up right off the Brown Line and wandering. So we have some cicada netting here.
Yes.
We haven't seen as many cicadas as we thought we would, but
yeah, I will say that in Chicago proper, we definitely have not seen the cicadas, and many of them would have died off because of construction. And the last time we had the cicada brood 17 years ago or so, they would have been hard pressed to find locations. But Chicago proper really did not have the explosion of cicadas that were expected.
The people that seem to have them in the city the worst, Beverly, got a lot of people in Beverly that said they had them. And I saw a lot, I spent a lot of time in LaBaugh Woods, definitely a place to go to. And I finally got to see them and definitely hear them. A friend in Edison Park, they were quite loud.
Nice.
And I loved them.
So we've come up to a street that you've heard Jen talk about earlier today. This is Rockwell Street.
Like many of the streets that we're going to talk about, Rockwell was named after a real estate developer. One of the earlier people that developed.
Yep. And you can see, so there's a little neighborhood bar right here, and they've got the train motif here. So they take advantage of the motif that's going on. Now, something that's interesting about the Brown Line, which you don't see, I don't know if you see it on any other lines, but this is one of the first times that we see CTA at grade level. So
my aunt, and I need to look this up, has informed me when the blue line would go longer, this needs to be fact checked, so take it with a grain of salt, that out by Cicero, they had grade level.
Nice. So just a few blocks ago, right, we were in Lincoln Square, and this was an elevated train station. If we look that direction, you can see the train station up there with the roof that goes over the train tracks, and it slowly, descends to street level. And one of the reasons that we have so many elevated tracks is there were so many accidents because of grade level crossings, whether it was pedestrians or cars or even train to train back in the day, that they just chose to try to elevate as much of this as possible. Now, there are certain parts of the CTA which they are subterranean, so it'll go to a subway. The blue line and the red line specifically are ones that through the city center, they'll run underneath the city, versus the rest of the loop, which runs above the track or above the grade. Each of these is sort of like if you went to a suburban neighborhood and there was a train station, a commuter train station, there becomes a little town center, village square, however you would like to look at that. And this is no different, right? So you're seeing that as you've got the exit to the train station, you've got retail on both sides of the street here.
And again, this is part of the Lincoln Square neighborhood, but we are going to head now in the direction of our river, which, my goodness, they have done an amazing job of cleaning up. We still, of course, have far to go. But some of the deep tunnel project that took some of the sewage overflow
Back up just a little bit. We've got some beautiful artwork here on the wall.
So once upon a time, you had too many storms. That storm water would mix with the poop water, and it would all go into the river. And now they're able to take almost all of that, almost all of the time, and put that in the deep tunnel or some of the, I'm blanking on the name, the pools, the stations, the, oh my goodness.
So that train just stopped at the station there. This morning when we were on the river down by Michigan Avenue, between Michigan Avenue and LaSalle Street, I talked a little bit about how that it was a filthy river for the longest time. There was almost no life in that. And nowadays, it's almost swimmable. You'll never see somebody swimming in there. But
you will in August. There's a swimming event in August in the Chicago River.
But it's really bounced back to life. The city has taken it upon itself to really try to clean up the river.
So many volunteer groups. I cannot emphasize how many amazing, like, urban rivers, and definitely Friends of the Chicago River is actually a really old group. I cannot imagine the uphill fight they were doing decades ago. Yep. But there are so many groups that are working their butts off to make the river nice. And every May, Friends of the Chicago River gets about 2,000 people just to help clean up. And it's kind of a fun day. So it all ended at a brewery. So definitely check that out.
Howdy, Chris. Thanks for coming in. Today we have my friend Jen here. Jen's been an aficionado of the city for as long as I have. Well, if she was as old as I was. But definitely a Chicago native.
You're seeing a lot of 2 and 3 flats here, which is funny because in this neighborhood, you really notice zoning. Little bunny just shot past us. You really notice zoning. So we're going to see all these really attractive, modest brick 2 and 3 story buildings. And then when we get over to Ravenswood Manor, you are only going to see single family homes. And then you will cross the street and you'll go back to this.
Yes.
So it's one of those things you can be really observant of. It's not coincidence that this happens.
Yeah, clout and power were important throughout the history and still part of the history of Chicago today. So not related to what we're talking about today, but Ed Burke just got his sentence. And how long ago was he such a corrupt... Ed Burke, I think, is the longest running alderman in Chicago.
City council.
Very powerful person.
Very powerful.
Was involved in a lot of things. Grey Lord, Silver Spoon,
Silver
Shovel.
Speaking of, we are going to be in the Ravenswood Manor neighborhood, and do you know its most famous resident?
I believe, was it one of our ex-governors?
It was one of our ex-governors.
Was it one of our ex-governors who also had an interesting living arrangement for a short period of time?
I believe all of our ex-governors have interesting living in situations, but he definitely fell into one of them.
So we'll talk about Mr. Blagojevich.
Yes, very famous. He used to not be able to walk down Manor because of the sheer number of news trucks blocking your way. I'm absolutely sure that the neighbors enjoyed it immensely.
So what we've done is we've walked parallel to the train station. Now the train tracks, you can see there's a small bridge here. You've got the 4-foot wall there that's going to go over. And this little park, on the backside of this park is the North Branch of the Chicago River. Mm-hmm. And my navigator friend is going to find which street, which I'm going to go.
We're going north. We're going to go over the Wilson Bridge, which is really pretty. And I really encourage people to come up here and check this out. But I'm also going to tell you just a wee bit about these parks. But yes, the Wilson neighborhood is just darling as heck. I'll let this train go.
So here we can see a brown line. Our mics isolate the sound, like they really can't hear the train that much.
Ah, interesting. So,
Are we going all the way back out to Rockwell? And that's fine.
I think what I'm doing is getting us.
Hold, please.
Well, drats me. Want to walk down an alley a bit?
Yep.
Okay, good. We're going to cross back over and go over to Wilson.
Yes, Chris. But, and while Times Square is not the same as it used to be, what would our historical Times, 20 years ago, Times Square was different than it is today. Did Chicago ever have let's say the overt trafficking locations? So that's female trafficking, or it was always considered women of the night.
Women of the night. Oh, well, sure. The most famous one, I believe they still have a sign up at the North Avenue Bridge that says no cruising. And so, again, newer people listening, that North and Clybourne area was once, I hate the term no-go zone. It was not an attractive place. It didn't have all these businesses. So the first one to come in was Home Depot, and people went, "You're putting a business where?" And because of the sheer level of prostitution on the North Avenue Bridge, that business became known as the Ho Depot.
Nice.
When somebody said the Ho Depot, you go, "Oh, the one on North Avenue." So I wanted to talk about the parks. We just cruised by Jacob Park, which is an old one from 1923. And if you noticed, it was really tiny. So there is that one. There is the Sunken Gardens. That's a neighborhood park from 1918. When this neighborhood was developed, they plotted out all the houses, and they didn't have a lot of space for parks, but they formed their own park district in 1914. And so any tiny bit of land, they put a park in. So you'll find a number of parks in the neighborhood, but they are exceedingly small.
Yes. Would they have then just purchased homes as people were selling to find that land?
I am completely unsure on that answer.
Okay. Well, we're allowed to make stuff up. How many times have I told you this? Now, one of the things just
they
to
pull
remind
good for
everybody,
land.
Chicago is one of those cities that runs on alleys. So the idea that the alleys are the service backbone of whether it's residential or even in the commercial
and
spaces.
why we'll always be better than New York.
Yeah. It's funny.
Our garbage is not in front of our houses.
So you'll notice that the people have their parking back here, and the electricity and the gas usually comes down through the alleys. The garbage, the waste, the recycling is happening in the alleys.
So even cooler, if you live in an old house, you'll start noticing the layout of the land of your apartment. And if you're wondering why the kitchen is always in the back and why there is a small bedroom sometimes in the back, you are looking at the kitchen would be in the back of an apartment because that's where the deliveries came in. So sometimes you'll see an old blocked off box where they would get the milk deliveries or get the ice deliveries. A lot of these still exist in Chicago.
This is cool. The little trailer is rentable from the library.
Absolutely love it. You need to haul that big bag of wood chips or mulch or soil. You can do it without a car. But yes, so we still have what is servants' quarters.
Right.
In some of the houses, and kitchens are in the back for the deliveries and other reasons.
that while now we use cars as our transportation.
Some of us, not all of us.
Yes, sorry. My apologies. That these back in the alley, these would have been the coach houses, right? They would have been stables in certain times. That this would be where your transportation stayed back in the early 1800s, prior to the really, right, 1903 we come up, 1903-ish. I think Benz comes up with the car.
And on that
How
note,
is this a one-way street? There has to be a street over there.
there is. I wanted to show the parks,
No
and now
problem.
we're going to hit Wilson.
The rooftop garden just ahead of us. I love the building right here. Just a beautiful building. And then you've got the, you're going to see that, right, it's the garage. But above the garage, they've created their own little rooftop space.
On that coach house and stuff, the city right now is doing things to make ADUs, accessory dwelling units. They had been banned for a while. And they're fantastic. There are so many good coach houses, like in Lincoln Park and
Yeah, down in Bucktown, the same thing. I've got friends who, I think that what ADU is the idea that your coach house isn't supposed to be livable for the most part. Sort of like in Chicago, a garden apartment is always a taboo element, in that you're not supposed to be able to have dwellings,
no, I think
individual
garden
dwellings
apartments
below
okay,
grade.
but ADUs, look at how gorgeous this is. My God.
Love the divided lights, the beautiful house here. Look at the old smoke pipe for their chimney. This probably at one point in its history would have been more of a three-season room, where this would have been a screened patio, but now it's winterized and more built out.
These are just beautiful bungalows in the neighborhood, and it's going to get even better crossing over to Ravenswood Manor. This is a gorgeous, just an American Foursquare. And
Now, something to look at here, that bungalow. Now, I don't know if I'm going to need some help on this, but for the most part, you see the little eyelet window on top? Those were sometimes built out to be bedrooms. They might have been attic space originally. They're going to be heavily pitched roofs inside, so you can only really walk down at full height down the middle of that room. As you move towards the left or the right, you're going to be hit by the window, or by the ceiling that's slanting down. And this, I always remember the bungalow being basically a one level with an attic / potential bedroom.
yeah. Well, you know what's funny is, and I haven't seen too many, I think this is one right here. Yep. If you look at this, especially in the northwest suburbs where there are just the gorgeous bungalow belts, people are doing pop tops, but they're doing really, really ugly pop tops that are comically entertaining.
So what she's mentioned, right, is there's a push out or a bump out in the back here. I think on the other side of the street, we have another example of it.
And I cannot guarantee with these places, but I've seen a few in the neighborhood.
So the beige home there, right, with the wood, that probably was popped up at some point.
I feel like that one is, but tastefully done. Yes. I am not guaranteeing that. But I've noticed that there are ones here that look so much more tasteful than the really entertaining ones on.
To let you know,
during some of the bungalow
I used to own
belts.
it was a Sears home, and the Sears homes, you bought them out of the catalog. A truck came to your home, dropped off a whole bunch of parts of a house, and then somebody put that house together. And the person that lived in it before me was a general contractor, so they hand dug a basement and they bumped out the roof, but it would have been a bungalow back in the day. They did bump out the second floor. I love the front of that house.
So I'm madly in love with this neighborhood, and I'm a resident of Albany Park, and I'm really happy that I live close to this. The river is great. These neighborhoods are great. If you're not familiar, it's a safe neighborhood to come up in and just randomly wander.
Yeah, you love that.
And so Wilson, which back in my uptown days was not considered a great place to randomly wander around.
A tougher neighborhood.
A tougher neighborhood. Now I hear, oh, you've got Target, you've got whatever. You see Wilson here, and it's just, I don't know, it's just not the image I think of Wilson just a few miles to the east of us.
So the street has taken a pitch up, right? We've got to kind of go over the bridge. You need to gain the height in order to get over the river here.
A solid 1% grade, so your Chicago muscles will be burning.
Yes. Again, I'm a fan of the murals and the paintings. So you've got the geese taking off here. Just beautiful.
We're going to go over the river, and you can see on both sides, residents here have homes on the river and they have docks on the river. Oh, there's a beautiful view of the Sears Tower.
I'll back up a little bit. Oh, yes.
If we want to go over to that side. Last month they did a whole street block off just so people could sit on this bridge and enjoy where they were at.
I'm going to take a picture with the other phone real quick, but as you look down the center of this river, you can see the Sears Tower cropping up.
The west side of the river it only has very few nice docks, some old ones, but the east side has got quite a few lovely boats. So also the north, we have a bike path that goes through. You can go all the way from Evanston to Belmont. And this is the one area it's interrupted. You're next to the river the whole time from going up through Lincolnwood and Skokie and all that. But you have a half mile here between Horner Park and Lawrence that you do have to go on the street, and it's very low traffic and it's really nice. And you get to see, again, these beautiful homes.
Not sure if you'll be able to see this, but you can see the white bubbles. The river flows south at this point in time, right? It's going to flow south. It used to flow south and then into Lake Michigan after the joint, but the river has been changed. Oh, we've got some rowing teams up here.
There are rowing centers along the river, and right up here at River Park, when you are south of Foster, there is a really nice kayak put in. Really easy to scooch a boat in.
Will you see eight men's up here, or?
I saw when the river cleanup day. It was the only people not cleaning up the river. So one darn day, couldn't you just slow down and pick a can out, you lazy thing?
So we've got crew coming through here. These are two persons, because apparently not all people are male.
That is a good everything burning exercise. I think rowers have the best VO2 max of any athletes anywhere.
I always remember it was the cross-country skier, but yes, the rower also.
Yeah. Very true. So yes, right up at River Park, you've got a really great kayak put in. They do some canoe rentals on the weekends. There's a track there, speaking of getting that VO2 max where you want it. And fun little silly thing, when I was younger, right here we have the docks, but just south of there, especially closer to Irving Park, we had houseboats. And I think this really boomed in the 1950s, but even in the mid-90s, there were still a few around. The bad thing of the river, their plumbing went directly into the river. The good thing for them is if you don't own property, you don't pay property taxes.
Yeah. So Chicago, well, Illinois in general, but Chicago especially, that the two revenue generators are sales tax and property tax. And any other tax that the city can hitch on, but for the most part.
But no longer grocery tax, we hear from our governor.
Love that.
Right? And a funny thing, I think, when I was younger, was you go out of state and you try to buy a newspaper. Of course, you're buying the print one. And you go to a store and they would charge you a weird amount. And it was always periodicals had a tax, but in Illinois, we never had to pay a tax on our magazines and whatnot.
Did not know that.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean it's $2.57?
Again,
these are
lovely,
perfect size
quiet
houses.
neighborhood.
Except
one
for
story,
when
2-story,
Blago's
3-story.
jogging through.
We're coming up to basically a 5-corner, and the reason is that the river causes us to create some streets that parallel the river, and that's sometimes diagonal rather than north-south.
And I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but the river's really been straightened out. Somebody on Twitter posted a lovely map of what the river would have looked like before they dug out that deep, straight channel. So our river, actually, at River Park, we had an old dam there. And it's where the North Shore Branch, the confluence is. And then they decided this is better for all the wildlife, yada, yada, if we take the dam out and just have a little way for the fish to go up. But they did dig that entire channel all the way north, Wilmette area, just to drain all the poop out of the water.
Nice.
Right into the lake.
We've got a spot for that. Again, you're seeing the green space, a park on this side of the river, basically paralleling the other side of the river, except on the other side, it was north of the tracks. Now we're south of the tracks. This is Ravenswood Manor Park.
And we're coming up on the Francisco stop. If you look down the street, more of these just perfect houses. And they all just kind of dead end at the river.
So yeah, if we go down to the bottom, you've only got a half block, and then there's the road barricades to help prevent the people coming home at night a little more tipsy than they should be. Here we see a train coming through the Francisco. And again, just like we saw over Rockwell, you've got this very small little retail district. There would have been a time where you got off the train and you met your significant other and you had dinner here, right?
There is another pumping station right on the other side of the Lawrence. It is gorgeous. There is single track trail next to it. So if you want to come and get your feet on a little bit of trail, Ronan Park, Horner Park, and definitely going up to LaBaugh Woods if you want to feel your feet on some narrow dirt.
Yes.
But the pumping station across Lawrence, they're going to expand that park, do some things with it. We are getting more housing in. We don't have an alderman that's opposed to construction, and it puts out a smell some days that, God bless the river, but it really puts out a smell. One of the things we talk about, the river's there. Thankfully, the rest of the neighborhood does not smell bad.
Right.
Mostly. Up to Lawrence or down the street?
We go up there.
Okay.
We're going to take a peek at the pumping house. This is just a beautiful little area right here.
You need to shit or get off the pot. That's coming out on there. That's going to be the highlight of the whole thing. Sorry, we had a driver that was like, "What are you doing?"
Again, quaint, quiet, however you want to describe it.
And again, single family homes. And then if I walk a little bit west, the second I cross Sacramento, you're going to go back to seeing those 2 and 3 flats. But older and gorgeous 2 and 3 flats. And this is Manor Drive that you use on a bike if you are looking to bike from Belmont to Evanston.
Yeah. That I'm gonna say it wrong, but I feel like I use the alleys in this little neighborhood to quickly get through here.
Cool thing about the river up here, so that confluence, you are going to see with those riffles and whatnot, it aerates the water, which is really good for fish. You're going to see a lot of fishermen. And you're also going to see a lot of really cool birds. This is another one of the small parks in the neighborhood, by the way. We have a ton of blue heron up here at River Park. And we also, and that's like at Albany and Carmen if you want to come up. But we also we've got blue heron, but we've got a huge amount of black-crowned night heron.
Yes.
Which are supposedly endangered in Illinois. And they're doing great in Chicago.
Yes.
Lincoln Park Zoo's got a ton, but we have an immense
Monroe Harbor,
amount.
Burnham Harbor, you'll see them. They're big fans of that dock area because they're kind of protected from people there.
I've got really interesting ducks up here in the winter. Golden eyes. My mind is blanking on me. But again, a lot of aeration of the water. We also have some aeration stations on the river to purposely inject air bubbles into the water. So up at Devon, if you are kayaking, be careful because it's narrow and it's coming in at both sides. Community garden straight ahead, sorry.
Yep. So here, and you'll see this in several places. The one that I love is there's one down by, the very tough neighborhood that used a division in Orleans.
Cabrini
Green. It also has on its southern end where the project still exists because until the people are actually given new housing, they're allowed to live in the old housing and therefore they can't tear down the old housing. But there is a community garden there in Cabrini Green.
This area is slated for construction. Nice. We are going to put in apartments. So aeration stations. We've got the one at Devon, which can make for some fun kayaking. And we've got one around Cortland. And the river's really wide there, and the aeration stations are offset. So if you're a beginner kayaker, they put out warnings, but you are safe through there. This is Ronan Park. We've got a sculpture garden here with some really cool stuff.
Again, Chicago has public art.
We do. And you continue up this trail on the other side of the river, actually. And if you go to Lincolnwood, they've got a massive sculpture garden that you walk through.
I forgot that we get to see a little tugboat down here.
So look, it's trails, and you're right in the city off of Lawrence.
So we're in the middle of the city, and we're on a dirt path.
We are between California and Kedzie right now. And this is one of our old pumping stations. I believe these boats dredge. I have seen them up further north. And I've seen them doing just, it looks like what's in there right now, just doing some tree clearing.
Right. See a little family of mallards, all female mallards, right? You
really see a lot of animals up here. From living up here, I just saw muskrats while kayaking. People have spotted beaver. I definitely have coyote up here. We're seeing all sorts of birds, especially in the migratory season.
Nice.
It is nice. Tons of cardinals in here, and of course, red-winged blackbird's my favorite.
Well, you know what? I didn't recognize where we were because I'm here so much in the early spring and late fall that you can
the growth
get
is
underneath. Right?
really
I kind of
something.
knew where that was at now.
So that's the pumping station that puts out particular smells, but it's not bad today. Paul can't smell, so it doesn't matter.
I have a superhuman power. No ability to smell.
It is why he hangs out with me. I'm an avid backpacker and whatnot, and I meet him many times stinking the high heck.
What is that? And I like the clock, or the clock artwork on the side.
I like that too, and then from the riverside, it frequently looks very abandoned. Drivers are stopping with pedestrians in the crosswalk.
I will
I'm
say
a happy camper.
Might be because we have a camera and they realize that the lawsuit's going to go our way. There are crosswalks here in the city. And you know what? I think that it's one of the safer cities for that cars will eventually stop for you. It is not
a guarantee, however. Yeah. Famous last words, they were supposed to stop. That is a massively used crossing, though. So,
howdy, Cubs. Great to have you in here. We are following the Brown line from Lincoln Square out to its terminal end at Kimball. And we are just now passing, we passed Francisco, and we'll dive back in at Sacramento. The interesting part about this section of the CTA, as I had mentioned just a moment ago, is that it's at grade. Almost all of the trains in Chicago run above ground or below ground.
And again, the Brown line, you don't think of it as being a booming neighborhoods, but 1907, that was quite a while ago. And in doing some of the research of these neighborhoods, it was in well before the neighborhoods got really well developed.
So this is kind of cute. You order your coffee and it comes through a 1-foot square.
We might have caught on to something a little bit cool.
Oh, is there a garden walk or a beer walk on right now?
It just said Taste of Albany Park. So we're now in Albany Park since crossing the river. And Albany Park's claim to fame, please don't move here.
By the way, the person in the chat, right now we've got somebody in the chat who's from the other community that I work with.
Okay.
And his name is Cubs Champion 16. And when I first saw him, I said, oh, good, a Chicagoan. He's actually in Boston right now.
Okay. Well, I hope he's an NL fan instead of an AL. Yeah.
And our friend Jen here, she was alive, I think, the last time the Cubs won the championship.
Yeah, because I was 16. But not the previous World Series in 45. Again, the change in zoning and what I mentioned, the higher buildings are here.
So as we look down, right, we're seeing the 3-flat, which is
exactly,
and this even is more than a 3-flat because these would all be multiple lots as well. There's the traditional 3-flat, which is still a single-family plot, just built 3 stories tall, and then there's also the multifamily dwellings where
courtyards, which, if you did not know, courtyards are illegal to build in Chicago now. And again, people, urbanists are trying to get that reversed. But why aren't they building courtyards? You are not allowed to. So Albany Park. Albany Park was settled with German and Swedish farmers. You still see up on Foster some of a few Swedish businesses, a little remnants that would remind you of Andersonville. but it was German and Swedish immigrants here farming. Then they got a really big Jewish community, and this was a really big center for the Jewish community. After World War II, they left, headed to the northern suburbs like Skokie. After that, the neighborhood really economically collapsed. In the 1970s, 70% of the businesses along Lawrence were completely vacant. A lot of crime. We were talking about seedy things before. There is still an area of interesting professions.
Yes. Very old professions.
Very old professions, yes. We joke about it. The neighbors are not so amused. They like to, they don't find rooms. So, in the 1970s, really vacant in this neighborhood. And then again, I think we keep coming back to community organizations. Community groups really worked hard to revitalize businesses, revitalize Lawrence Avenue. So that happened. Koreans moved in mass. Guatemalans moved in. Filipinos moved in. It had the highest percentage of Koreans, Guatemalans, Filipinos in the entire city. And right now, it is known as the most diverse neighborhood in Chicago. The Chicago Public Schools say that 40 different languages are spoken in the schools here. So they say not only the most diverse in Chicago, one of the most diverse neighborhoods in the entire country.
As we talk about it many times on the channel, Chicago just consistently migrates. That there'll be gentrification, and then the people that were able to gentrify a neighborhood, they find another opportunity.
You already see, from 10 years ago, you could go down Lawrence, and they called it Little Seoul. Everything was in Korean. So the Koreans have already started moving out to many of the suburbs, although some do remain. There's a Korean newspaper here, big Korean community groups. So the other thing that I think amongst city residents, not the people that just kind of hide on Randolph Street and eat at their Michelin star restaurants, this neighborhood is known for the food.
Yeah, I feel like there's Turkish,
There's
a lot of Mediterranean.
There's everything, and it's right next to each other. So Kebabi here just moved. My favorite grocery store, if you want to spin this around, Sahar, which is in this little shopping complex here, is Turkish and Persian. So you have Turkish, Persian, and they'll be next to a Mexican bakery, and there's a little Salvadorian place here, and then there'll be a Korean place next to it. Right here we're going to have Mexican, Vietnamese. Nuno Kebab is really famous.
Tacos and banh mi.
This neighborhood at Kedzie and Lawrence has everything. And a ton of little ethnic grocery stores. So I think in some of the trendier neighborhoods, what they would charge you $1 bajillion for is just an ordinary staple here.
Right. Nice.
La Placita.
And again, we're walking back south towards the train tracks. The brown line here at Kedzie. What do we have left? Just
Kimball.
Just Kimball. Okay.
After this, the terminus of the Vietnamese here.
I'm going to talk a little bit loud here, and you'll
Japanese
hear me
here.
we want to make sure we're staying away from the copyright here. So, a little street vendor out here playing the music for the patrons of the restaurant.
This is a bar doing really nice cocktails. My only complaint from living just a wee bit north, North Park University does border this and the North Park neighborhood. We also have Northeastern Illinois University, and it's a cool area. Up by there, you've got the old tuberculosis sanitarium that's now a nature park. You just keep getting to see the train. But North Park is a Christian school, and they've blocked off the area around Foster and
I remember.
Kedzie. I live in a dry zone.
Community, yeah.
Luckily, you come back down here, but you do have to be on the other side of Lawrence.
You just live on the wrong side of the tracks.
Yes, I do. Who associates college kids with dry areas? So here again, Lebanese meat market.
So butcher, that's actually a butcher or a restaurant?
Butcher.
Nice. A little bit more of the local murals here at Albany Park. You've got the train that just passed by us, right?
No, it doesn't have to. So what I live here in the city, Chicago mayor.
Do you guys live in the neighborhood?
Yeah.
Do you like the neighborhood?
Yeah, it's dangerous.
What's your favorite part about the neighborhood?
I don't know.
Nothing.
The neighborhood.
Probably the train station.
Yeah. What's the domed building ahead with the statuary on top?
That is $1 million question. It's down the street from me, and I don't know. Head down this way?
You just got a compliment for being very knowledgeable, and I think we have to take that back now. So we've got, again, Mexican, Middle Eastern.
Public art.
More.
The kids said it's very dangerous, and it is a neighborhood. I feel like definitely the further kind of west you go, especially southwest, there is gang activity. So I will be honest, latinkings are here. Stuff occasionally happens,
Howdy, Dip.
but
Great to see you.
I also live here, and I feel good, and I feel safe. Oh, tomatoes going.
So we're now in Albany Park. We're
Hi,
touring
boo.
the Brown
It's
Line.
okay.
Hello, we've got a guard dog behind us. My friend Jen was mentioning, right, so we've gone through the neighborhood of, we had the multi-unit dwelling, or multi-family dwellings, and then we went into single-family homes for a while, and now we're back out to that multi-unit. And again, the three flat in Chicago, my opinion is, it's usually on a single plot of land. But here, this is an apartment building. So this was intentionally built on multiple plots of land, and it was intended to be a multi-family. Here's some beautiful ivy on the home here. We're walking about a block south of the Brown Line itself. This is an area where the Brown Line is at grade. So traffic stops for the trains. People stop for the trains.
I want to give props to one of the businesses that we didn't see. That Something Sweet Donuts. I had adventures on Punchki Day, and if you know anything about Chicagoans, Punchki Day is serious business.
Yes.
They did a bang-up job. Their stuff was good, but they also staffed, and they had everything down. So they did a really nice work.
This is cute. They've made their own little park here, gymnasium. Just a few blocks away from the terminal end of the Brown Line at Kimball.
The terminal end is going to have a really a quite big train yard, I guess the phrase would be. And they do repairs there, and they just kind of hold and store trains there. This is Spalding, like many of the at-grade or many of the other ones. You can exit either way from the platform. So it also dumps you out. The Kimball station, I'm sorry, the Kedzie station also dumps you out right there. It
does. Now we're coming back to, single family bungalows. These are still heavily 50s, 60s, 70s. or newer than that?
I think older than that. A lot of the 50s stuff is very mid-century, and you can really tell they've got that, how shall I describe it, Brady Bunch. It's a particular kind of design. A huge amount of construction in Chicago took place in the 20s. And then, of course, all collapsed with the Depression. So a lot of your courtyards, if you're in a heavy courtyard neighborhood, especially somewhere like Lakeview, you can just tell that's a 1920s,
right.
1920s galore.
We're definitely in a neighborhood feel, right? So we're still in Chicago proper. We are inside the city limits. Many of the places that you see show you are the city center where you've got the skyscrapers, but the neighborhoods is really where Chicago lives.
I am glad you brought that up. The neighborhoods are where the magic is. And again, this is one of these neighborhoods you can just go wander around and explore.
I can see a smoke pipe ahead, or a chimney ahead of me, so there's probably an old factory sitting here. It might be an apartment building where that would have been the boiler room escape.
Definitely a neighborhood to come up to.
Yeah, we're probably, what are we, 5 miles north at this point? Six miles north?
Well, we're going to be at 3,400 west, and we're going to be at 4,800 north. So, all of you newbies, divide those numbers by 800. 800 in the city is 1 mile. Learn your 400s, learn your 800s, and you'll have this city by the you-know-what's-its.
We're now at Kimball. The train, between the last stop over at Kedzie and here, the train will take a hard right turn.
Right up the street here, we're going to have, about 2-3 blocks north, we're going to have von Stuben High School. Yes. And it's just a beautiful piece of architecture. And It's next to again, a beautiful little park to walk along the north branch of the river where it gets really tiny, where it is before the confluence.
So if we look down here, we can see that you've got the last stop. You can see the remnants of the roofs of the last stop at Kedzie, but then it takes this drastic right-hand turn. And as Jen mentioned earlier, right, it's a holding yard for trains that are out of service or need repair. Right. The way that the trains typically work is during rush hours, you're going to see a higher frequency of them. And as they don't need them closer to the end of the evening, the trains will start parking here and get ready for the next morning when they'll slowly increase the volume heading back into the city. Something that is really interesting here, right? So you've got von Stuben just across the street. Again, we're seeing the ethnicity, the variety of ethnicity in regards to the food here. But you've got von Stuben, which is going to be just across Lawrence.
About 2 blocks north of Lawrence.
And the other one is, at that point, there's also a river running through there. The North Branch.
It is the North Branch, but it's going to, if you've never seen it, it's going to have a completely different vibe than what you're used to. It is very narrow. And in this neighborhood, it's fantastic because there's a whole series of just little pedestrian bridges. It is not an easy place to get around by car, which we appreciate. But what you will have is just all these little single pedestrian bridges. It's usually not deep enough to kayak, but when it is, it's a ton of fun, let me tell you. And it goes all the way up to the Skokie Lagoons.
Yes. So from here, you can now stay on the river all the way up Skokie Lagoons, the Chicago Botanical Garden, which is well up north, but you're on the other, the North Branch has forked at this point.
You're going to go through a series of forest preserves.
Yep.
Again, if you haven't been on the northwest side, the forest preserves like the LeBaugh Woods, the Caldwell Woods, they are exceptional. You can definitely be in nature and stay within the city. There is single track. The Weber Spur is fun. It's a disused rail line that they may do something with someday, but in the meantime, you can hike it. And that's all around the river, which is just the best part about the neighborhood, I think.
We're seeing, again, some street art over here on the building.
A Huddle House. People don't know we have a Huddle House in the city.
I feel like we should be 3 states south of here right now.
Exactly. It's like having
a Huddle House.
It's like having a
Waffle House.
Waffle House, yes.
Huddle House, it's a diner. By any stretch of the imagination, it's a diner. If you go in there, you can get coffee, you can get eggs, you can get meats.
And it'll be fantastic.
Yes, it
Better
will.
than whatever free-range thing you're doing for an excessive amount of money.
It'll be 10 times larger serving than any place else you go in the restaurant.
And 10 times cheaper.
Yes.
And your server will be better.
And here, again, we're seeing the exit and the exit turnstiles from the train station. We'll go up to Von Stuben, we'll look at the river, and I think we'll just go ahead and close it there. But let's talk a little bit about Kimball and why is this station called Kimball?
It is named after, boy, your favorite fact, right?
Yes.
It is not named after Richard Kimball.
It's named after
Martin Kimball. So I have another dumb fact after this. It is named after Martin Kimball. He was a farmer. He owned land around Logan Square, but I know I keep encouraging the people not familiar with Chicago, do this, do this, do this. But for any of the old timers, they filmed snippets of Cooley High at this station.
I did not know that.
I am here to entertain.
I was able to surprise. I think Jen knows more about the city than I do. She loves the city just as much as I do as well. One of the things that I always loved about the idea of Kimball Station is that the Martin Kimball, his name was actually spelled B-E-L-L, but the stop and the street are both called B-A-L-L. And the family protested for a long, long time and eventually just settled on the idea that it's Kimball. And the family's name actually goes by the street name now rather than what the original family name was.
I didn't know that part. We always think it's cute and funny that they, during The Fugitive, they have Kimball going on the brown line.
Nice. We know where he's going to end up.
Exactly.
This is the northernmost exit on the Kimball line. It is not the northernmost exit for the CTA. And I would say that it's interesting, right? Because you could say the red line, the northernmost, would be Howard Street.
Sure, 7600 North.
But then you could also claim that it goes even further, because if you were to take the Skokie Swift, which is going to go west from that point,
of course.
or the purple line, which will take you all the way up to the Baha'i Temple. And one day I'll take you on a tour of the Baha'i Temple. We can't go inside.
We could do that by kayak.
Yes.
Quite literally, this from River Park here, you can hop on, and it'll take you all the way up to Baha'i. You can also hop on the path up here, the channel path, and you can go up to Baha'i. They're filling in just a few little missing pieces that will take you very far north.
Little mosque over here.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the crescent atop the mosque. It's just down the street here.
This is a frustrating bit. I love the river, but there is one complaint I will express here. We are on Kimball, which is 3400 West. The next time you have a north-south street with a bus line is Western, which is 2400. So while it gets broken up a lot because of the river, so they don't extend Kedzie, they don't extend California. So we kind of have a mile and a quarter living in here without a north-south bus.
So yeah, so there's a little bit of a transportation desert.
Yeah. We do have stuff going north, though, which is funny, because if you do hop on, there is a 93 bus at Kedzie, and you can go up to Evanston, who has done a lot of really good work with their downtown.
Jen's one of those people I can say, I'm here, I need to get here, and she can list off the 7 buses that I have to go and where to exchange. And I'm one of those that I'll take the seat. I'm very comfortable with the CTA, the train line CTA, but the buses are also CTA. I'm unfamiliar and somewhat uncomfortable with the bus lines because I always feel like I'm going to get on a bus and I'm going to end up either in Gary or in Evanston. And if you know anything about Chicago, you're not in the same place when you get off at one of those 2 spots.
The blessing here is that unlike, and I feel this way in other cities where they do these jig-jag, swoop around this way, swoop around that, and then they find people are uncomfortable and don't want to use it, right? Here, north, south, east, west. With a few exceptions, and like every single native Chicagoan, I don't know what the heck I'm doing on a diagonal.
So this morning, if you were with us, you would have seen that we were on the Chicago River at Michigan Avenue, which is one of the largest widths of the river, of the entire Chicago River. And now we're going to walk across the North Branch, and I'll give you a shot of it.
I feel like there should always be a separate name for this because it's the North Branch of the North Branch.
Correct, yes.
And they're doing construction work on here, actually. So they've just started putting in just some filler. They're probably trying to eliminate some erosion. That would be my guess. But there is a nice little path through here. You're looking at North Park University. This building, it's a dorm. It got a lot of attention because they have now put in a pipe underneath here, a tunnel, because it would flood so badly. Everyone around here, their basements were wrecked, but there is a picture of it going up, the water going up to the bottom floor on this.
Nice.
I mean, there was no sides, no nothing. So
I can see. So there is a retaining wall there, but that retaining wall apparently at times was not enough.
Exactly, and some of the pictures from a few years back, it was pretty outrageous. So most of this has now got a
love it, Dip. Thanks.
Has got to prevent it from being too much. And a lot of residences this way, it's really cute.
I'm going to back up just a second. So you can see it's a little bit wide open here as we come towards the university, and this is looking eastward. As we look westward, you're just seeing an awful lot more of the greenery and the overgrowth of the trees here.
I want to take a walk.
Yeah, because there is there's a walking bridge down here.
I have kayaked this twice, and it really needs to be at a really high flow. The rocks are high, and starting at the Weber Spur in Labatt, you'll start getting some riffles and some rocks you're stuck on. But boy, and then you have to get out definitely before the confluence, otherwise you are up Deep Creek. But there is a spot to get out, so if anyone's a kayaker, look into water levels at this level, at this area. It's a blast. And I never see kayakers on here. It's really doable.
You want to walk over to the bridge real quick? You can either go block that way or block this way. Yeah.
Sure. Although we'll have one right here.
Oh, okay.
If you're looking to show a pedestrian bridge. Like I said, they're really everywhere. If you start going down
we go north
Carmen,
here, you've got von Stuben on the right-hand side of the street, named after the
Bobby Van Stuben, the bookie, the local bookie.
Oh, I thought it was the guy that was always after Snoopy.
That's the Red Baron.
Oh.
It's a beautiful piece of Art Deco architecture.
So Chicago had every house of architecture possible. This happened to be like the NBC building downtown at 14th Street. There's another awesome example of Art Deco.
Tons of Art Deco.
But here you've got
another part of the 1920s boom. This is, you see Art Deco, you can be a know-it-all in front of people and say, oh, that was built in the 1920s.
Absolutely. Can we go through the parking lot here, or
if you really want to, we can go along the river.
Okay.
Or
just so we can get to the pedestrian bridge. I just don't know.
Oh yeah, that's how I'm thinking. Okay. I don't know if you want to film some of this. But then we'll go back the way we came.
Thank you, Dip. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I do think that there are special parts. So you've got that this was a senior high school. And what that would have meant in certain situations, you've got frosh soft and then junior, senior. So they'll do a 2-year high school, two-year high schools instead of a 4-year high school.
I was reading that the local elementary school, this neighborhood filled up so quickly between the teens and the 20s, from 7,000 residents to 26,000 residents, that this was built in response to just simple school overflow.
Is this a construction walking trail, or?
It is.
You know, I know I've run through here, but I don't know how well it gets through. So. Dip, I need to figure out a way to promote this more. And I'm sure eventually we will find out that there are people that love these neighborhoods of Chicago.
I think there's
we'll
a lot
find an audience.
I think there's a lot of people that are
how fast the water is
here. Really unfamiliar with the neighborhoods. So, you know, we're always getting new residents in, and where can I go? Where is it okay for me to explore? Where shouldn't I be? Where will it be interesting? Or is it just going to be a series of strip malls or somewhere they won't be safe? And
so they're struggling, right, with water level here. You can see that you've got the river right there, and it's moving fast. And
you know, I'm taking the kayak out tomorrow.
But that you can see that they're struggling to keep water off this trail right here.
And you know, it actually wasn't, it's a bit of the construction being in a weird place, because the water was really high with the rains we got, I want to say a month ago. And this was actually doing really well. But it's obviously in a state of transition. They just started working on it. We have a lot of red-winged blackbirds here. Oh, and a blue heron just went by.
Cardinal just ahead of us.
Yeah. This is a really good birding neighborhood.
See if we can approach quietly. But oh no, so the cardinal's kind of gone deeper into these trees here, but there was just a cardinal, male cardinal.
If anyone, since I brought up the rare opportunities you can kayak here, I put in the Labaw Woods west of Forest Glen. And you can pop in, and this is just an area that, just because of water levels, you don't get to do too frequently.
Love it, Dip. Thank you so much. You know, one of the things that, my friend Jen, we both enjoy barley soda. I love some of the dive bars and some of the places you can go in these neighborhoods where you're really just elbowing up next to a guy who finished a shift and just wants to tell a good story.
Absolutely.
And have a beer and make a new friend for 5 minutes. Yeah, we're good. Oh, I'll get ahead of you.
Oh, look at all the ducks. This is a huge area for ducks. And I'll tell you something really funny here, and nobody's going to believe this. At the kayak launch at River Park, hi guys, there's a lot of feeding of the Canada geese. And I know people have feelings about Canada geese, but if you ever want to come and meet a few that'll walk right up to you, no hissing, no meanness, and just be like, hey buddy, this is the neighborhood for it. They're so used to being fed, they're borderline affectionate, and you can hand feed them.
What would the parish church have been? Would there have been both a Catholic and a Protestant church in this neighborhood?
That's a really exceptional question. Growing up Catholic, oh yeah, the Protestants. But it does make sense with a Swedish contingent here.
So
I'm
got
kayaking
these pedestrian
tomorrow.
areas anywhere. And I'm going to tell you that the water's running high. She's getting excited. The water's running high and the water's running fast. I think that you're able to see that on the camera.
Yeah, this is a I certainly don't want to say an advanced kayaker course because that sounds like whitewater somewhere.
Yeah.
But if you are used to doing the Chicago River, like downtown or off the main branch, this water moves. But also, again, it's fun, this water moves.
Yeah. Very nice.
And it's a little more, it's definitely more chill up in Labatt Woods and in the forest preserves. And you really get a wide, really nice, wide, calm experience there.
Very nice.
So,
I think that, do you have any other cool facts?
unless you want to go through North Park University, and I've got no facts about them other than they make my neighborhood dry.
No, we'll save that for another day. So, folks, I really appreciate if you stayed through to the end. God bless you. I hope you had an enjoyable experience here. Again, I love showing off this city. I'm a prideful Chicagoan. And I know that pride's not the greatest thing to have, but I think that this city has so much to offer. And there's more than just the downtown area. There's more than just the wealthy neighborhoods. By the way, I like the wealthy neighborhoods. But
I'm on a push to get, some of these people to please leave the same 6 neighborhoods that you're always
correct,
in.
right. Yeah, so you should go to Lincoln Park, but go to someplace other than Lincoln Park too. All right, folks. Thank you all for being here. I will probably see you again before the end of the week. It's been fun having you. Please like, subscribe, share, do what you can.
Thank you for hosting me and letting me yammer endless, useless facts.
Big thanks to our guest, Jen. Lifelong Chicagoan, although she's turned her back on us a few times.
I'm back for good. I will die in the city.
But you all have a great evening. And if you pay attention to the other channel, I think we've got Declared Dave. So let's go visit Declared Dave. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Dip. Hope you do come back.